guys, Dan here, and today I have a Photoshop Basic video on clipping masks and layer masks, and I'm quickly going to show you how to use both of them, and I'm going to explain why you would use them, what they can be used for. So clipping mask is simply done by having the image you want to mask on top and the image you want it to mask into below, and then you can simply hold Alt on your keyboard and click in between the two layers. So what has happened here? So basically what has happened here is this background image is only shown in where this part is filled on the image below, and this does take into account the opacity levels. So if you did have some sort of gradient where it was going from 0 opacity to 100% opacity, like I'll just rub it out with a, so if we had a feathered brush here and we rubbed it out, you'll notice it still applies properly, it fades out as well, the same as the shape. So that is literally a clip mask in a nutshell. It's a very nice technique, it's very good for creating these kind of simple, kind of like adding images into logos. That's what I use it for a lot. And it doesn't have to be just a shape, it can be anything. You could, and holding Alt in between the two layers will unclip it. Just make sure I don't miss anything. When you create a new layer, if you have, obviously we have this downward arrow that shows it's being clipped into this layer. If we're selected on the layer that has one of these clipper masks layers above it, when we create a new layer, it will automatically make this layer clip into this layer. So when we unclip this, you'll notice it'll actually unclip the top one. So just make sure whenever you create a new layer, if you don't want to disrupt that, just make sure you're on top here, and it'll be normal, as you can see. So that's just something to consider. Why am I pressing all the wrong buttons? We should delete them layers. So yeah, layer masks. We can do the same thing, what we just did there, but I'm going to show you better reason to use it really. So we are going to keep this clipper masks actually, and basically what we're going to do on this shape, we're going to create a layer mask. So we're going to go down here to this little square with the circle on it, which is the add layer mask button. We're going to click it, and you'll notice on the layer you'll get this blank white square. And basically what layer masks do is it's basically it's your full screen canvas size. It's kind of like an invisible canvas that will determine what's shown and what's hidden, and it does this by just using black and white. Anything that's white will show. So as you can see, this is a whole white canvas, so anything here inside this canvas is going to show. If I clicked, make sure you're clicked on it as well, you'll notice you'll get this white box. If you're not on it, you will not be editing the layer mask, you'll be editing the layer. So if we're on the layer mask and we hit Control I, which is invert on Photoshop, you'll notice it's completely black, and now we can't see anything, and that's because black hides. So now the whole area of the screen is hidden. So if we just invert that back, and then we go to our brush tool, and you'll notice we can rub things out, but we can re-add the rubbed out parts, or you can completely rub everything out and redraw parts in. So you can do this, you can invert, hitting Control I, make sure you're on a white brush, make sure you're not on the eraser tool, because that's the whole point of this. In my personal opinion, my personal use of it anyway, is I use it a lot for basically erasing things, but without actually erasing it. It's still there, it's just not showing. So if I do want to go back and change something in the future, I can, and that is a really nice feature, and it comes in handy a lot if you ever did run into that situation, which I have many a time, and it's can be very annoying if you're not using layer masks, because you have to redo whatever you created again. So as you can see, when we just draw now, you'll notice we get things starting to show, and then if we don't like it, we can simply click back to black and we can rub out. Pretty self-explanatory right there. Things to note, if you're using any other color, which I don't know why you would, it won't work because it works in grayscale. So if it's red, obviously it's going to come up grey, and basically greys, anything that's not pure white or pure black, will basically just like turning the opacity down. So you'll start up here and you'll be going 10%, 20%, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. If you get me drift, and I'll show you if about here, about 50%, you notice when I colour in, it's faded, but because it's like, if we coloured this in now, wrong one, if we had this all showing nice and bright, but we actually turn the layer down to 50%, you get the same result. And that's because that is doing pretty much the same thing. It's just doing it in a different part of the software. So a few tips with this. If you want to disable the layer mask but you don't want to delete it, hold shift and click on the layer mask and you notice you get this red X through it. So if we just show that and we actually just draw something, I don't know, do something weird like that. So we got that. If we hold shift now, you'll notice it will just disable it, so it pretty much just shows everything up again. Double clicking it will open up this, and basically you can just mess around with some extra parameters for this. I never really use this, so I'm not too keen on it, but it does say density and feathers, so they kind of speak for themselves. And you can go in and do the refine edge tools and things, but we're not going to get into that because that's not really basic. If you want to duplicate this onto another layer, you simply hold Alt and drag from the layer mask thumbnail onto another layer. That'll do that. If you want to delete it, you simply click and drag to the bin like this, or you can right click and hit delete. And when you do delete, via dragging and dropping on the bin, it will ask you if you want to apply the layer mask, and what that means is it basically just merges it as is. So what you see now will be just one layer. It won't have a layer mask, it will literally be that. So if we hit apply, I can show you here, you'll notice it's literally just the shape now, and I can't go back and edit that. So if you do ever want to, there might be a few situations where you actually might need to merge, your layer into one without a layer mask on. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but yeah, you can do that. Like I said, you can't go back and change it then, which is the whole point of using layer masks. But then again, you can use layer mask to mask something out a bit more accurately, so you don't have to kind of rub something out, misdo it, go back, keep doing it. You can just kind of go in with the paintbrush, switching between black and white, showing and hiding. The best thing I use this for, it comes in most handy anyway, then other than just creating cool effects things, is cutting things out of real photography. So say you've got a mountain range and you've got a sky and you want to separate them two, you'll notice the layer mask, this we don't want to apply this. If we have something selected, like say if we can literally draw as well. So when you make a selection with like this, if you create a clipper mask while that's like that, you'll notice it will actually make that part white and then the rest black. So whatever's inside that selection will show. And obviously hit Control I, you can invert it. So this is really handy. Say you're masking out some mountains in a picture because you want that separate. Maybe you want to put in a custom sky. Make it like a weird a sci-fi city or something with like planets in the sky. You can go along, mask it out, then hit the layer mask. It's not gone. So if you did make a mistake, you can go in and select a brush and you can start correcting it, I guess. And that is just such a helpful tool. If you hit Control and click on the layer mask, it's going to select what's ever showing, or what would be showing if it was in that area, because you notice this only shows up in this part. And holding Alt and clicking and dragging duplicates. I don't know if I said that, but that's how you duplicate it. And you can simply drag and drop this onto other layers if you want it on another layer. And that is about it, I think. If I've missed anything or there's any questions you've got, leave it in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you learned something new. And like the video if you liked it, disliked it if you disliked it, and all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next tutorial. Peace out.